All right, Trails Collective world. Ian here for the Trails Collective live episode for April 12th, 2022, while this is airing. Good to be with you. Just back from practice. For those of you who maybe tune in to what I've got going on in my many hats, I help out with the Ithaca College distance program as well and the women's team. And we just had a beautiful afternoon for a track workout, some repeat quarters. And it was, I think, about 70 degrees and sunny, and it was just beautiful to be back on the track and a spring day. So excited for another full episode this round, whether you're catching it live this evening or whether you are catching it after the fact. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for liking the channels or the stations. Thank you for sharing it in your networks. Very, very much appreciate it. And thank you for being here. So if you are tuning in live and you want to drop a comment or a question for me or any of the guests this evening, drop it into the Trails Collective's Facebook feed or the YouTube Trails Collective feed. I keep saying it week after week that I need to figure out why the comments don't come into the live feed off of my Facebook live stream, but they're just not. One day I will prioritize stopping to figure that out. In the interim, tune into the Trails Collective pages to comment or question, and we can plug them in here. So this evening, I will start off with a couple items on the hot list, events that are open in registration, about to cap out. Now would be the time to get on them if you were interested. One registration that's about to open. Actually, let's see. It wasn't really anything that I was catching on the podcast world in my radar this week. And then we'll dig into some results. And we've got a few guests in the lineup this evening. We'll start with Jim Blandford on the Bull Run 50 mile. We will have Brandon Talisesky, as well as maybe the RD, Vin Capadora, one of the RDs coming in on Shore to Shore 50K. And then we will have Sarah Briggs, the overall winner in the Eagleton Trail Challenge 50K. And then we will dig in tonight and go a little bit longer with Chris Roberts. Chris, I'm grateful to have had on a couple times, I think on Trails Collective Live episodes so far. And he just successfully, I guess it's still early, the launch of Long Haul Sports Nutrition. And it'll be fun to dig in about how that process has been. And if you're not already in the know, to tune you all into what he's got literally brewing. So we will get into all that. So let's start off with the hot list. So some of the registrations I don't catch that are on other platforms like Run Sign Up and such. All you RDs out there, feel free to give me the heads up if you have an event registration opening, or if you want me to plug something, let me know. Otherwise, it's easy to just check Ultra Signups listings. The Mid-State Massive 50 miler slated for October 8th in New Ipswich, New Hampshire is 93% full. The Enchanted Forest 6-hour ultra running April 23rd in Stratford, Connecticut is 98% full. And the Quest for the Crest VK, 10K, and 50K running May 21st, May 22nd in Burnsville, North Carolina, is 98% full. A registration opening on deck, the Blue to Blue Challenge 50K, quality Northeast technical gem, I believe still directed by Jimmy McCaffrey. Jimmy, if you're tuning into this, or somebody in the Jimmy posse, let us know. I think he, despite taking on another hat, I think he's still RDing that race. Running September 18th in New Haven, Connecticut, and registration is set to open on April 15th. So with that, we will start getting into some of the results segments. And I am going to bring in Jim Blandford. Jim, always good to connect with you, man. So thanks for taking some of your time here.
Sure. Good evening.
And Jim, I've been thankful and grateful to know for a while. I think he's done 4 Virgil Crests. How many? Give or take?
3. I think 3.
100. I guess you did 50. 2 and 50, and then was it 50 last year too?
Yeah, I guess it would be 4. Yeah, 100, yeah. 50, 50, yeah, and 50 this year, so it is 4.
Yeah. But in animal, some of you, Jim, may be on the radar for covering obscene amount of miles. That was 2000, going into COVID, right? So 2019, 2020, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it was like 1 million vertical feet of elevation gain in that year. And really, it's just his go-to flow area, right? You've got the nice climb in your relative backyard, just beautiful terrain to both ascend and descend. You can kind of hit it all year round.
Yep.
And it's really pretty. So a great resource. So But this past weekend, Jim ran, how many bull runs have you run at this point?
That's 11. And 1 DNF. I have 1 DNF. So 11 finishes and 1 DNF.
Yeah. So solid. So bull run for those of you who are not in the know, Virginia Happy Trails Runners Club event, inaugural running in 1993, making it one of the older trail races in our region and one of the older 50 milers in the country. So it's a pretty deep history, some pretty fast times on that lineup. And it's cool to see some of these events in the Northeast that have these deep histories of some really fast times that even though we still got some solid runners out there, like those times are they're just fast. So it's cool to see some standing marks. So tell us a bit about, because I've not run it. I've not really dug in. Give us your impression or kind of rundown of what Bull Run's all about.
It's about 5,500 feet of climb for the whole thing. It's got rollers the whole time, some flatter running when you're down by the river, and it's a lot of running compared to your races. Some of your hillier stuff. Sometimes you just wish there was a hill to have a nice long mile climb or something like that. But it's a very runnable course, and I recommend it for everybody. I mean, it's just the volunteers that are there, and just that whole VHTRC is just, I have so many memories at all their races between MMT and there, and it's just a special place to be every April, and I plan to go back every year.
And that community, Virginia Happy Trails, I'm assuming most of us running in the Northeast, if not nationwide, it seems like usually, well, it's often tough to go someplace where you won't see a Virginia Happy Trail shirt kind of pop up in the mix, at least a lot of places that I've been. So for sure, the community has some pretty deep roots.
Yes.
So 11 times. So you keep coming back. So something keeps you bringing back to that course, and it's not the elevation gain. So what's the...
I think it's just the whole community of just seeing those same people every year. It's just so welcoming, and I just, I love being down there. It's not the typical stuff that I run up here in Hamburg, Pennsylvania, with rocks and the hills. But just going down there, it's a great challenge to see where you are and where your fitness level is at that time of year. And I just love that course. And I mean, when I first started going down there with the Pagoda Pacers, the running club I'm part of, some years we'd probably have at least 15 people from our club that would go down there. So just, it was a big part of what this whole area would do. Now this year the numbers were down a little bit, but it's a big group from the Pacers that, support that race over the years.
Roughly what was the first year you went down? How long ago?
2007 was my first.
Okay.
Yep.
It's been fun that we're old enough at this point that when you think it's come up a couple times, I think in some of the route sessions, or at least some of the podcasts or the TC lives where we've gone long, to just reflect on how some of the takeaway kind of community immersion aspects of events have shifted in our time, right? Where now we're so connected. You're pretty active on Facebook, usually posting photos of your runs or whatever. And so at some level, we're always connected. But when we were kind of getting into this, there wasn't all that. And so you were that was your time to get together with friends and connect and share that time. And that's it's shifted. I don't know for better or worse, but I don't know. It's for sure different. Yeah,
it's different. I think it's better, at least in my area. I mean, there's so many people that come to my area now up in Hamburg, and the training up in this area is just, with the group of people that I have, it never seems like running is that hard when I'm surrounded with
friends,
great community. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was interesting also with you coming out of Roxylvania, the amount of technicality in your general neck of the woods that Virginia for sure has some good technical trails down there, but so I wasn't always, I think, thinking about the less technical ones. I immediately, I think my head spins to, Virginia's got a lot of climbing, it's got a lot of technical terrain. And now, even though I've been aware of the names of these races for so long, like now going down and doing Promised Land and going down and having done Hellgate and hearing about Old Dominion and now talking about Bull Run, there's so many classic races that really just aren't actually that technical. Like they're very runnable, particularly when you get used to the amount of technical terrain that's in your neck of the woods or over in the Hudson Valley or Adirondacks, any of these places that are really not that runnable.
Right.
So comparably, it's cool to find those events and courses that are very runnable.
Yeah, and Bull Run's one of them.
And so we had talked a little bit, and you just referenced it, referencing the event before we went live here on just the runnable nature of those. Like, I don't know, like as I'm getting older too, I'm for sure just losing that degree of intensity. I'm kind of more out there just for the experience and to be with friends and to go to cool places and not really think much on it. But some of those very runnable courses, I think historically would kind of scare me to a certain extent because you're having to run flat out for like these long distances, and the technical courses are the ones with a lot of climbing. Like you've got this great excuse to just hike for like,
right.
I don't know, a couple miles or whatever.
Right.
And I don't know, the opening of like Hellgate this past year, my first time through it, like there wasn't, aside from like the deep leaves, it's like a fully runnable course. There's not really that, comparably speaking, not that much technicality to it, again, except for the deep leaves. So if you're fit enough, like you can run the whole thing. So there's always the piece of your brain that's like, well, I don't really have an excuse to run here. I'm either just out of shape or I suck. But like there's not, it's not like the terrain's making me walk. So, and that's different for you, like in where you're at, because historically you've been a really competitive runner, and because you do like a lot of climbing. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. And you mentioned you're kind of sore or whatever, like that's a lot of running.
Yeah, definitely a lot of running. I ran everything except coming into the aid station. You take a couple steps to get the bottle, but I had all my aid stations down, and Karen was there, handing my stuff off to me. So I probably didn't spend, I'm guessing, more than 3 minutes, probably not even that, at aid stations total. Like I was just in and out. There's no, I do pretty simple stuff, so I don't have to, if you stand there too long, you'll get too comfortable and start talking too long.
And you were third overall? Is that what?
Second.
Oh, you're second overall.
Yep.
And first old dude in the mix?
Yes, I was in their, I'm out of their master's division now, and I'm in the senior division for their 50 to 59.
Well done. And also mentioned it before, again, we went live. So, and this was a good build-up effort. You got Massanutten on deck. That's next, right?
Yep, it's out there.
4 weeks. It's out there.
Yep.
And still on the fence? I mean, are you still thinking about whether to do it or not? Or
might still be too close to Bull Run. Talk about that one.
Just see how the body and the mind and emotion recover.
Yeah, I feel like I'm recovering pretty well. I've been hiking every day since Bull Run, so my legs are starting to feel a little better tonight on some hill repeats. But we'll keep going, see how it feels in the next week or two.
And as we mentioned also that the you just know what Massanutten takes. You know what that looks like. You know the pain cave that requires. You know the depths. And you're a competitive individual, so it's not like you're just kicking back, just out there for the experience. I mean, you're hurting, like you're going hard.
Yeah. The field looks amazing this year. The amount of the runners that I know, and it looks like a great field to be part of. So hopefully I can change my thoughts around right now. And
is that friends as well as the competitive nature of it? Like, is it a fairly deep front end, or is it just the amount of friends in the field? Or both?
Both.
Yeah, both.
Mm-hmm. I think the competition up front will be, it looks like it should be really good.
Well, right on. Well, I hopefully will connect with you somewhere in the interim.
Okay.
And I'll be, if you do end up towing that line and you go deep, I will be thinking about you out there, and maybe we can connect again after that.
I'll definitely want to be back at Virgil this year, so.
Right on. Well, it will be good to have you. So well done last weekend, dude. And
thank you.
I will talk to you more soon.
Great. Thanks. Have a great night, everyone. Yep. Bye.
All right. And then next up, we are jumping to Sarah Briggs.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I don't think that I'd sufficiently stalked your Facebook photos up until I was looking for a photo for this episode.
Uh-huh.
And you were a stint with powerlifting.
Bodybuilding, yeah.
Bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Very short stint.
Very short stint, but regardless, I mean, that's an interesting little interlude. And that was pre endurance running. What were?
Yeah. I mean, I ran when I was in high school and stuff, and then took a long break through college and grad school. And then I always still liked to run, but I was always getting hurt. So I decided, well, I'll try lifting. And then, 0 to 60, of course, I went straight to bodybuilding. So yeah, but quickly got out of that.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. All right, so we are jumping into with Sarah Briggs. Sarah was the overall winner this past weekend at the Eagleton Trail Challenge outside of Lock Haven, and it was the 6th year running, and you crushed your own prior women's course record, which was 5:30, and you brought it down to 4:58. I mean, 32-minute jump with you. That was just last year too, right? I mean, maybe we can compare years, but you were pretty fit last year too. Last time I checked or talked to you. So you went from really quite fit last year to 32 minutes quicker in a 50K.
Well, there's a caveat to that. I did run like a mile and a half extra last year. Okay. So I ran the correct course this time. So that's good.
All right. So we'll give you that grace of like 15 minutes, but that's still an additional 20-minute pickup that you just kind of hammered out.
Yeah. I mean, and that course it's no joke. It's tough. It's very technical. It's central Pennsylvania. So those rocks are aplenty down there. Lots of technical downhills, which really crushed me. You just can't get anything going. You have to walk them. You're afraid you're going to fall. But yeah, it's a tough course. It was great. I loved being back. Loved running the right way this time. It was nice.
Yeah. So take us through that. So you mentioned some of the terrain, and many viewers or listeners at some point will be familiar with Pennsylvania. Have some pretty technical races. They've got other events and areas, some of the Uber endurance sports events, really wonderful, low-key, inexpensive races that just are non-technical and really flow. But I think Pennsylvania is very much known for the amount of just rugged, long races. So take us through, I guess, give us the rundown of the Eagleton course. What's it all about in terms of how it lays out, and a little bit more there.
Sure. So you start out, I think it's like a campground kind of thing. And then you immediately start climbing through those, rocky sections. You get into few creek crossings, pretty minor, but enough to slow you down. And then you start climbing a bit. You get through like a power line area. So you're like in a, field, which is nice. And then it's some really nice single track for a long time. And then it starts to get a little more technical again. There were parts where it was just, like I said, rocks everywhere. And it was super technical. And knowing that I got lost last year, I was very cognizant of that. And so it was very tough to try and keep that good flow, but be aware of where you were, staying on course, but also not falling on your face. So that was a nice little challenge. Yeah. But then in that section there were tons of creek crossings in there too. And it had just rained for the past couple of days. So it was really sloshy in there. And then you get to a few big climbs that are just like one right after another. And then, it has a little bit of everything. And then it's, downhill single track for a long time. Then you get more into some wooded stuff again. And then this really nasty, like quarter mile climb with like a mile and a half to go, that there's a rope. And I'm not one to use, just where you want it. And I'm not one to use a rope in any way, but I mean, there's no way I could think I could get up it without it. And
And just really smaller kind of technical boulders, or like these big things you're climbing over?
At the rope section.
Yeah.
No, it's just straight.
It's just steep.
Yep. Yeah, super steep. Yeah. And then after you go up that super steep climb, then it's like these switchbacks all the way down that are just covered in rock and like I said, it had rained, so it was super muddy, and you know, the 25K, 10K had been through there, so it was already pretty beaten up. So it was a tough last mile and a half. Blake said at the end that somebody dubbed that the soul crusher, that last mile and a half, which I thought was perfect.
Yeah, I don't know about selling this race. I mean, all kinds of like boulders and the rope at the end and rocks and like the soul crusher, and great. Yeah,
it's a great challenge, though. Come on.
So enough that you went back, right? This was your second time, or did you run it?
Nope, my second time. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And how'd the race shake out? Did you lead from the get-go? Were you in the mix with some others, or running somebody down?
Well, I was in third, pretty much just with within the first 5K. There were two guys ahead of me, but then they both made the turn that I made last year, or missed the turn, I should say, and got off course. And I didn't realize that until I caught up with Chris at like 16, maybe. He was like, I haven't seen anybody come through. So, well, there were two guys ahead of me for sure, but we ended up figuring out that they made a wrong turn there.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, at least you can relate and you can empathize.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're coming in pretty fit. So your year's going pretty well so far. Knock on wood, table in front of me here.
Yeah, knock on wood. Things are going. Yeah, things are going pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And what's it look like for you? What's your what kind of volume you do? Because you're running quick and tough.
Well, we switched things up a little bit this spring, which has been really fun. Been focusing a lot on road stuff. I'm not a huge racer, but we've thrown a ton of different like road races in over the past couple of months. So that's been really fun to get a really good workout in, get that turnover, have fun racing, and just trying to get out on the trails as much as I can. I have Boston this weekend, so I'm pretty pumped about that.
Right on.
Yeah,
that's good for you in terms of just, you know, the kind of back to back with the 50K win on a technical course with Boston the week after.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, and an expectation there, or really just going for the experience and not really worrying about time?
Not worrying about time. I ran my first one back in October, and it was the best running experience I've ever had, and I can't beat it. So you just have to just go run that course.
And just a good atmosphere and just kind of cultural experience.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. And then what do you got after that? I might know, but what are some of the focal races for the year if you've got others planned?
First weekend of May, I'm going to do the bridge run down here in Binghamton, and then loop the Lemur on May. It's a new race put on by Confluence Running Events. It'll be at Ross Park Zoo in Binghamton, and that's May 15th. So I'm going to do the 6 hour there.
It's a timed event, a long one.
Yeah, it'll be my first timed event. I haven't done one of those yet. And then this little race, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, CT50.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to do that one, I think. So yeah,
that's good. I hear it's pretty. I mean,
decent. It's okay.
We don't have lemurs, but, waterfalls, not lemurs. Yeah. Cool. And then how about after that? Anything? Or that's too far away?
Yeah, Virgil is, I think, the plan, but that wine glass or marathon. But that's really it. I don't have any huge plans. It's been kind of fun to just throw things in there as we go. So
that's good.
Huge plans after that. But,
Cool. Well, right on. That was a pretty awesome performance. It was good to see you hammer out your own record, and Blake was pretty excited to have you back and see you crush that as well. It's cool that I was about to say it's cool that you got a couple smaller things on deck, but no, you don't. Like, what the hell? You've got a marathon next week, and then you got a 6 hour there before Cayuga Trail. So you're kind of a boss. You're just stacking it on. So that's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Well, well, next time, maybe if I see you in person, might be Cayuga. It'll be a blur before then. But if you don't break, which hopefully you won't, you're going to be absolutely fit as a fiddle at that point. So we'll see what you can do.
I hope so. That's the plan.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you for taking a bit of your time out here tonight, Sarah. It was great to have you, and congrats on the weekend.
Thanks so much. See ya.
Yeah, totally. All right. Talk to you later. All right. And so next one, we are going to roll into Shore to Shore. We've got overall winner Brandon. And then also jumping in with us here, we've got Vinny Capador. He and his wife, Nicole, from Happily Running, put on said Shore to Shore events. And so I was going to say it's Happily Running event production. It's a point-to-point 50K spanning north to south on Long Island using the Greenbelt Trail. And this was their 4th year. Is that right, Vinny? Does that sound about right? Something to that effect?
Yeah, 4th one we had to cancel around COVID, but not due to COVID. Some gnarly trail damage that was done that we couldn't have folks run on the trail. But other than that, yeah, it's been the 4th year.
Cool. And then Brandon with the overall win, a new 50K course record out there of 3:45. Nice work, dude. That's not slow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Totally. So, Vinny, give us the, I guess, overview of Shore to Shore.
Yeah, so it's a really nice course, in my opinion. It's really flat, but you kind of hit pretty much everything from a little bit of road to sandy running, a little bit of rootiness. Just being that it's Long Island and it's basically 30 some odd miles, there's a lot of zigzagging through some of the trails, but for the most part, it's a pretty cool mix of stuff.
And Brandon, did it feel like a cool mix of stuff?
I'd say generally, yeah. I mean, I felt there was probably 2 big climbs that I can recall in the race.
Now, when we're talking about big climbs here, I'm
comparatively speaking, right?
Yeah, right. All right.
Speaking.
In terms of, if I guess we're going to compare it to the Boston Marathon, maybe big climbs, but
yeah, exactly.
Quantify.
Exactly.
All right, let's quantify it. What are the big climbs on the Shore to Shore course?
Vin, there's probably one at like mile 5 and one at 18 or 20.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that they're not too big, but you're talking about maybe a couple 100 feet. There's Ian, and any of the runners who run like cross country, it starts over at Sunken Meadow Park. So you go up the backside of what we grew up calling Snake Hill. Some people call Incline, which is one of the first hills in that course. So you go up the backside of that and you do that, and then there's a little bit of climbing in there, but then after that there's not too much until around 18 or 20 where you have to get up again, but again, it's not terrible, but I think where it's placed, it's, if you're hustling and for a while, it's a climb. For sure.
And so to Brandon's point, Brandon, I'm just messing with you here, but when you're running a 3:45 50K and hammering, whatever, dude. A hill's a hill and you're going to feel it. And even if it's a couple 100 feet, it's a solid hill. But I broke your train of thought. So you're kind of flowing. You hit a couple of those hills. But
yeah, the course, I when I was looking at races, I was looking for a course because I live in New York City. So it's much harder to find bigger climbs unless you travel an hour or 2 hours outside the city. So I've been dabbling in some ultras, so I looked at a course that was somewhat consistent to New York City running, which is a little bit flatter because that's what I train on mostly. So found this course and seemed to really like it. But yeah, to what Vin was mentioning, it has a little bit of everything, a lot of turns, a little bit of terrain, some road in there, and just had a fun day out there.
Cool. And you're relatively newer, I think, to the ultra scene. I did, and I know I've had you on, we've chatted before, had you for a prior clip, and you've been up there, I think, in all the ultras you've done, but not a ton under your belt just yet, or you're kind of getting into it more?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting into it again since I live in New York. It's harder. I like doing marathons as well, so I just kind of dabbled. I just did my first 100. I did the New York 100 back in June, which was nice, and then I've done a couple of the more local 50 milers. So yeah, just dabbling in here. I've done it like 8 or 9 ultras, but still only target 1 to 2 a year.
Yeah. And then for the race this past weekend, were you pretty much kind of leading out of the gate, or were you mixing it up for a certain amount? Or
maybe for the first couple of miles, there were some people around, but I think as the race went on, it just kind of
strung out from there.
away. It just hung.
Yeah. And then Vinny, this is for Happily Running. This has become a pretty solid event for you guys, right? It's grown, or...
Yeah, it started out, I think our first year, we only had a few folks, maybe 50, 75 or whatnot. And then this year we sold out at over 250. We, due to, still kind of that, COVID overflow feeling of folks being able to defer and whatnot, we had a decent amount of folks not defer. Decent amount of folks defer or drop down in distance right before the race. But we still had well over 200 people start between the two distances, about 135 in the 50K.
Yep.
Yeah, so still a good race.
Some of your events, at least at the moment, Happily Running, I mean, you're concentrated, I guess, still around that Long Island area where your roots are, right? Tesla's not far from there? Is it like a half hour,
No.
45 minutes? Is not close?
Yeah. So Tesla uses the other. So there's 3 greenbelt trails on Long Island. There's the Nassau Suffolk, and then there's the Suffolk, and then there's the Paumanok. So Paumanok, you guys had there's the Paumanok 70K. You had somebody on there last week. Tesla starts right there. It starts in the same spot. It just does a loop instead of following the trail all the way out.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. So the courses that really flow and all growing pretty well. And I know you guys are still growing and Happily Running as well. And I know that will continue to evolve, and maybe you'll have some different elevation in your metrics that your lineup here in future years. But right now, I mean, Happily Running is a good place to go for courses and events that just kind of flow. And then Brandon, what do you got on deck for this year? What are you planning for anything in particular?
Yeah, so in a couple of weeks, I'm doing Rock the Ridge at the Mohonk Preserve. So that's the next one on plate. I'll probably do a fall marathon, and then I'm leaning towards doing the JFK 50 again.
Cool. And what was that your first year doing it last year?
First time I ever did it was my first ultra. It was like 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm remembering in the moment, your ultras have gotten quicker since then.
Yeah, I think just experience, probably a little better nutrition, and a lot more back-to-back long runs.
Sure. Yeah, and what's your volume like at the moment? What's your?
It's not as high as others. I think I'm only doing like 70-ish a week.
I think that's great. I think for most people, that's how old are you? You're
30.
30. Yeah. I think up into the 30s, at least for myself, I don't think I felt in shape unless I could hit that 65 to 70. Much beyond that, it just got kind of into risky territory though. But if you can hover around that, I think that's pretty awesome for fitness.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's solid. And have you have some experience in Rock the Ridge? Have you been up on any runs up there?
I've run some of those trails before. So I'm hopeful that some of that experience will be helpful come race day.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful course, and one that it seems like would be a pretty good fit for you. I mean, a little bit more maybe gain, but still very runnable. And I think suits a pretty fast roadie pretty well. And is it, do you know who's in the mix so far this year on the front end?
No, there's no ultra sign up for this. I have no idea who the entrants are.
Gosh, that's obnoxious and annoying at this day and age to not know who. That's ridiculous. But that'll be cool to see how that shakes out. And then that's usually the first, like May 7th or something. When is that?
Yeah, I think this year it's May 14th.
Okay.
So looking forward to that. I have a couple weeks to recover, stay in shape, and get after it again.
Cool. And then Vinny, what's on deck for Happily Running?
We're helping out with a triathlon, but then the next thing is Beast of Burden Summer, actually, that we've got coming up.
Oh, so you'll have a nice actual little gap in there where you can actually chill as a family unit for a little bit.
Ultra wise, yeah. There's some other stuff in there, but we'll hopefully trying to put on some of our own races. I'm not trying to run some of our own races.
Well, I guess you've got Laurel in the mix in between too.
Forgot about that one. Yep. Yeah, Laurel will be there. That'll be a fun one as well.
Yep. Cool. And then the Beast of Burden Summer. Well, just see what that brings. For those of you who don't know, Beast of Burden up there in Buffalo have a winter edition, which they just took over this year for the first time, and then a summer as well. And also, maybe you just twist Brandon's arm to come out there and just see what you can do in a deadpan flat 100-mile race in the heat of summer.
That's it. Yeah, there's a few people that are that have talked about coming out and trying to crush it out there. So see what happens.
Cool. Yeah. Well, nice work, Vinny. Sounds like it went pretty smooth. And Brandon, great job. That is a fast time out there. Congrats on the win out there. And I will be excited to see how you do at Rock the Ridge.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks for taking some time, guys. I will talk with you both later.
Yep.
All right. See ya.
Yeah.
All right. Rolling into the Go Long segment. Chris, good to have you back on, buddy. All right. So, Chris, for those who are not already tuned in, I don't know if you've been living under a cave, if you just don't know who Chris Roberts is at this point, but time to roll back that stone now. And so, Chris, you're based in Kirkwood, Missouri. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's a suburb of St. Louis.
Yeah. And this is we just had Chris on a few weeks ago following little wee attempt at this, I don't know, small unknown event called Barkley. And so we caught up there a little bit, but for an intro there, which I will just somewhat duplicate here, Chris prefers them long and hard with multiple 100-mile finishes, including Grindstone and Hurt. He's frequent flyer at Hellgate, including losses to John Anderson, multiple first loser or the assist role in finishing second at last person standing events, including Biggs Backyard in 2021, with an absolutely ridiculous amount of miles before losing, which is just a long way to go if you're going to lose. Like, I don't know. From my perspective, dude, if you're just going to go like 300 some miles, I don't know, you should probably just go one more loop and just win that thing at that point. But,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's fair. It's understandable. And he also, then we segued into Barkley, and you got to catch us on that episode. We had a few of them on, Alyssa Gadesky and Chris, as well as Dubova, just talking about their Barkley experiences. So you can check that prior TC Live episode. But what might be fun to focus on tonight, or in this episode, will be he's also just launched an endurance fuel company called Long Haul Nutrition. And it might be fun to just dig into, I guess, a little bit about that route. So let's go back, I guess, before Chris, it was really founded. Historically, what have you been using for your own kind of nutritional shakeout as you've been basically going longer and longer in ultras as well? What's been your nutritional go-tos?
So I guess I started running ultras in 2015, and I tried out a couple different products, but it's mostly like the drinks. The powdered drinks, you just mix it in 200, 300 calories worth, and then supplement with gels. There's a number of different gels that I try from time to time, throwing that together. So in my first couple 100-milers, it was, I don't know if it was just because I was young. I was like 30 years old. I could do nothing but gels and sports drink, like just nothing else in the gut. And
just because you didn't have the appetite for it, or just you couldn't digest it?
No, that's what I figured you could do. Like I just pound like 200 calories worth of sports drink and 100 calories of gel every hour, and just every single hour on the hour, my body was fine. My stomach didn't have a problem with it. And after a while, that stopped being the case. Like I started realizing that there was just, I don't know, there's not a lot of people that can really do that. And so I started moving around to a little bit more solid foods, typical aid station fare and things like that. But I've always had some kind of powdered sports drink to be like that primary fuel source for most of my races.
Mm-hmm. And then on that, at least for, I don't know, I guess me, when I started first kind of jumping into the scene around 2001, it was probably like Hammer that was out there. Like it was like Hammer, there was Heat if you wanted to go light, and then there was the Perpetuum or the Sustained Energy, or I forget what the name of that third one was. But that's kind of, Yeah.
There's this other company, was it Accelerate or something like that?
Oh yeah, that wasn't that was kind of,
day.
and I guess that was kind of one of the ones that came on a little bit lighter, a little bit more sugary, maybe not quite as dense as the Hammer product. But that's kind of what was out there. And that's what we used, I think, on the first few races that I started putting on. I think we had the Hammer out on course, maybe some of the gels in the mix as well. And there was almost just like I don't know, for a number of us, the switch was just like flipped. Like suddenly, like our gut would just not want or like tolerate that. Like, I don't know, to me, what seemed like chalk like anymore. Like it didn't want it. It didn't like it. And it was just, and so it started, and not to just, I was about to say not to hammer on Hammer. That wasn't at all intentional, because I know there's a lot of people that still use Hammer, and that's awesome if it works for you, great. But at least in my own experience, and what I started hearing at our races was, because I was having then that supplement out there, and then I was getting the feedback that it was taking on this new nickname of heave instead of heed. And I was like, it was, again, people just kind of seemed to be turning on it. But in your evolution with some of the powders, did you start with some powders that you were happy with, or kind of what were you trying and using, or how did you evolve through maybe certain brands?
Yeah, so I won't name any brands in particular.
Come on, name the brands, son. Name the brands. But that's fine. Whatever. But.
No, but like there was one drink that I started with, and it was so salty. It was just so painfully salty. And it was just like some of the first ultra races that I did, I was like, I guess this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to drink this thing that tastes horrible because it's got the calories, it's got the electrolytes. It had some of the electrolytes. And I was like, all right, I guess you stomach it. And then I stumbled upon something else. It's a fairly mainstream product nowadays that it worked for a while. And then I started realizing after a number of 100-milers, it's just too sweet. So towards the end of a race, you know, when sometimes your taste buds just kind of, they don't want something super sweet, and just you think that at mile 20 it's fine, and then at mile 80 you're just like, oh God, I can't do this. And then it started messing with my stomach a little bit and all that. So I had a couple of drinks, a couple of products that I was using over the years. One of them I thought worked well for a couple of years, and then it just, after a while, I just started having problems with it.
Yeah, and how'd it go? So what were you doing prior, or maybe you're still doing? And we can get into that a little bit. But what's your, either if you're still doubling up on occupations and hats here, but what was historically what you do?
Well, so yeah, long haul is a side gig. My main job is I don't know. I'm a data analyst.
Okay.
I do aviation analysis, helping out the FAA, crunch numbers, run simulations of flights going in and out of airports, things like that.
You know, inconsequential things that probably really don't make a difference for the general health and safety of individuals.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. So you're at least used to, I mean, really crunching numbers. So I suppose that there'd be for sure some application then when you start getting into working with numbers on a product development side.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's been almost 2 years since I started down this trek for long haul. But when I started, it was like I said, there'd been a couple of years where I was just kind of struggling through a product, and it just really wasn't working. And I didn't know what the problem was. I figured like there was something out there that should work, and I went down this rabbit hole of research, looking at different types of carbohydrate products, and different formulas, different ingredients, and then what the electrolytes should look like, and all this other stuff. And then I probably did, I guess you could call it market research, but I looked at least 20 different mainstream products out there, and it was like looking at every single ingredient and what all the compositions were, and trying to figure out like, why are they different, and is there a reason behind why they're different, or is it just somebody like wanted to make a product and they have some kind of distributor or manufacturer, and they're just kind of slapping a name on it, and all that stuff. So it took a while to figure that out, but then it got down to like spreadsheets, tons of spreadsheets, just walking through, trying to figure out like, all right, there's these 20 different companies that have all these different formulas. Is there is there like a best formula? Is there something that is tailored more towards, the longer running, the ultra marathons where you've got problems like your stomach might give out, you have sensitivities to things like fructose that really probably isn't too much of a problem in something like a half marathon, but when you start getting it 4, 6, 8 hours, it becomes an issue. And so, yeah, just kind of crunching all those numbers and going through research and trying to figure out what should or could be in a drink that would work well, and then going through just iterations and iterations, trying to get something that would, flesh out and end up tasting good and having everything that you need in there. So.
Yeah, and I guess it is interesting where you look at I'm in the shop at the moment, and you're and for all of those who may be listening, and for sure in the at some point it'll be live on Trails Collective. You'd be able to purchase it, I imagine, direct from Chris there on Long Haul as well. But the opening orders are en route to the shop, and we'll add it into the number of other brands that we currently carry here, and we'll also have it out at Red Newt races as well. So for those of you who haven't experienced it, if you're going to run a Red Newt race this year, you're about to experience it, so you can see what you think. But with the number of brands that we already have out there, it is interesting to see, to your point, is there a certain, I guess, formula to work? I mean, there's a lot of overlap in the brands. There's maybe a similar calorie target there. They've got a lot of the same ingredients. Electrolytes are tweaked a little bit. And then there's the couple outlier brands. There's like and I'll say the names, you don't have to, but like the Generation U cans, where they're just using a different ingredient. There's the Martin, I think, which is a slightly different makeup. There's the Vespa, which is a different way to look at things, and kind of a tweaked, at least singular ingredient in there. But it seems like with the long haul, yours is a little bit closer to some of the kind of main body of what's out there. But what were you finding that was, I guess, for you, that at least that didn't work, that you wanted to tweak, that was kind of a common ingredient or makeup in some of these other brands?
Yeah, so to start it off, there's 2 things that really I was looking for. And one, I wanted a product that wasn't as sweet as a number of other products out there. And so there's some that use just simple sugars. So that's like dextrose and fructose. And so when you're drinking that, it literally has the same sweetness as if you were just dumping, like a half cup of straight table sugar in your bottle. I mean, there's flavoring and stuff in there, and they put other things, but at the end of the day, it's a simple sugar. It's super sweet. And at mile 60, I just stopped being able to take that in. So I was trying to figure out ways to get that, to bring down the sweetness. And to do that, you have to use different ingredients. Use a complex carbohydrate, like a maltodextrin instead of a sweeter dextrose. And then additionally, the fructose was another issue. Your body can't process fructose as efficiently as it can process dextrose or maltodextrin. And so after a couple hours of exercise, it's not really a big deal. But when you go for hours upon hours upon hours, like an ultra marathon, some people just start having fructose. I guess sensitivity is a good way of putting it. Just because it's a limited pathway. It's one of those things that can back up. Also, if you think about aid station fare, you've got things like sweetened cookies. You got fresh fruit, which is all fructose, and then you've got like sodas and stuff like that, which is high fructose corn syrup. So you think you're on your nutrition plan with some sports drink or gel or whatever, and then you roll into an aid station. You're like, oh man, I gotta drink this 12 ounces of pop that I see there that I'm just jonesing for. And the next thing you know, your gut is kind of overloaded with fructose, and while you feel like you're getting the calories in, like 10 or 15 minutes later, you just kind of feel bloated. Your body is effectively just like backed up, trying to process this excess stuff in your system. So that was one of the other things, was trying to lower the amount of fructose in there and get a different balance of the complex carbohydrates and then the fructose.
Yeah, and in my experience, and in at least one of those brands that for sure is sweeter, and that was maybe, I don't know, a relatively newer hit brand, I think, when it was out, and they make some cool stuff, and we sell a decent amount of it. But at least for me, when I was consuming the powdery mixes, would tend to burp those up like a lot more. Like not only, yes, was it tougher later in the game, to your point, when my system was just done with that, but I could tell there was something where my gut just immediately was having a tougher time processing them, and I would just be burping that up more. So then I got used to just cutting down to certain quantities, but then you're off on other things and not necessarily getting in the caloric content. I'll plug in Quana. Had a couple comments here, and one of them maybe just on that topic. And so I said, also, I was under the impression that the electrolytes require a certain amount of sugar to absorb properly. Will the product still have enough sugar for those electrolytes to be absorbed?
Yeah, so it's not sugar. It's like glucose and fructose that can be carried, that help carry the electrolytes across the gut barrier to get into the bloodstream. And so it certainly has enough in there, because it's designed like a lot of the other products, where it's 100 calories is kind of your baseline single serving. And so there's plenty of calories in there. There's plenty of carbohydrates that can help as they're going across the gut barrier from your intestines, crossing the intestinal wall and getting into the bloodstream. It's going to bring along the electrolytes with them.
And so this is, I mean, cool, right? I mean, here you're not just looking at the ingredient list, but then you're really having to dig into the physiology and the biology, and I mean that's can be a fairly, I guess, a deep dive.
Yeah, and so one of the things is, like, it's, I didn't really study this in school or anything, but there's this concept called osmolality or osmolarity, depending upon exactly how you're looking at it. But it's basically a measure of the concentration of stuff in what you're eating or drinking. And so it's just the amount of molecules that are in there. And the more molecules you get, at some point you get to a level where what you're taking in has more molecules, more density of stuff in it than what's in your blood. And so if you have something that's what they call isotonic, it's got a lower level of density. So it's easier to transport across your gut barrier into your bloodstream. But then these products that have simple sugars, they have smaller molecules, which means there's more of them, which has a tendency to kind of overload your stomach a bit. You get a little bit more bloating on occasion. There's some people that are fairly sensitive to that. So by using a complex carbohydrate, it's longer chain molecules, so there's less of them, and it reduces the osmolality of the product, which presumably makes it easier to digest.
Mm-hmm. And so when you started digging into, then I guess there's the starting, I guess just how's the process go? I mean, so what did you start with? Did you first looked at the ingredient list, then you started looking into, all right, well, how's this ingredient affect the body? And then once you're there, then that next rabbit hole or the research point of, all right, well, then how does that mechanism necessarily work? And then digging into other ingredients. So I guess, I mean, what was the pathway here? I mean, I guess, like, what came first, and then let's pull back the curtain on a couple of those. So, I mean, where'd you start? Once you were just like, I think something else can work here, like how'd the process go?
So from my perspective, like, I was looking for a solution. I wasn't necessarily looking to make a product. At the beginning, that wasn't the case at all. And so I thought, the first thing I wanted the complex carbohydrates and less fructose. I wanted something that was less sweet and was presumably a little bit easier to digest. That was a big thing. And then from there, I was like, all right, there's some products out there that are like that, but they don't have the electrolytes. So, like, you see a product like Tailwind, and there's some others that have a pretty good electrolyte profile that's fairly close to mimicking sweat profiles. And then there's others that just don't have that. Or maybe they have a lot of sodium, but they don't have anything else. And sodium is not the only electrolyte that matters, especially when you're exercising hour after hour after hour. There's the other electrolytes that come into play. You've got magnesium and potassium and calcium and stuff like that. And so I was trying to figure out, right, going down the research, what should be in a product, like how much should you be taking in per hour when you're exercising, trying to figure out what companies out there were in that, in that range. And then the next step was like looking at amino acids. Not a lot of companies have amino acids in their products. Amino acid is just like the building block of protein. And I figured if you're doing something that's 4, 6, 12, 24 hours, your muscles are going to start breaking down. Is there a way to take in a little bit of protein to help offset that, delay the muscle fatigue? And so those were like kind of the 3 or 4 components. And then also something that didn't taste like garbage. So make a little Venn diagram and look at 20 companies and you're like, all right, where does everybody stand? And there wasn't really anything out there that I could find that, hit everything I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So then it went down the rabbit hole of, all right, what are these ingredients that everybody's using, but they're not using them the way that I think they should be using, or they're missing this, and starting to put things together. And at one point I was like, I'm going to try and make my own. And it was terrible to start. It was just absolute, it just tasted like dirt because I had no flavoring component to it. But I was like, I think I've got something here. And then I went down, tweaking this ingredient and that ingredient to get things, just so, because if you use just salt to get, your sodium levels, it's going to be too salty. But if you use just sodium citrate, it's going to be too tart. So you got to find a middle ground. You got to work through all those iterations of figuring out the right balance of everything. And, this other ingredient doesn't work because it makes it too frothy, and this other one tastes too chalky, and all that kind of stuff. So hundreds and hundreds of iterations of that.
So if the one that just tastes like dirt, though, I don't know, but whatever that drink is that uses mud or whatever it's dude, that like brawny, handsome, middle-aged white guy with the full beard and looking strong that's selling his mud, dude, that's on my whatever social media ad feeds all the time. So clearly there's an appetite for mud. So do you think that you could introduce either just a dirt flavor or just a garbage flavor, which you referenced, because they could be hot and hip right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think technically the first time I made a drink and it didn't have like flavoring ingredients in it, I think I described it as it was like drinking ground up paper. So not quite dirt, but it's the same kind of thing.
Which is good. Like if you're on a ocean-bound vessel in 1690 and suffering from scurvy and all you have to eat is paper, like, I don't know, pulp may be pretty good. So I don't know, if you do, maybe you can change your branding to a picture of a ship in 1690.
Man.
Yeah. All right. So you start looking at these ingredients, and then is it just like, hey, I'm going to go to my grocery store and I'm going to purchase some sodium citrate to see if that's better than the sodium in my kitchen, and we're going to put that in the mix?
I mean, Amazon. It started out with just like little bags of stuff from Amazon mixing together. And, like one of the main ingredients that I use in long haul is a maltodextrin. And the first thing I use is maltodextrin is fairly common in brewing. And so you can buy like brewer's maltodextrin, and it was terrible because it's just so powdery that if you mix it like with water, it just clumps like crazy, and it's just terrible to use as a main ingredient. So I had to like figure out, all right, are these companies that make something that still makes maltodextrin, but it's in like a different form? I had to go down that route. You can't get that kind of stuff just off Amazon or go to your grocery store. You have to buy them by the pallet and weird things like that. So going from something where I thought functionally I had the right ingredients to like an in state of having like truly the right components, that took a while, like trying to source the right suppliers and get like the right product. And then the flavoring ingredient was another thing. Like that took time. Like there's a few months where I was like, I think I have a product here, but I can't get it to taste very good. I was trying these other flavoring components, and it just wasn't working. And then I finally contacted this company, and they sent me some stuff. And like the very first, like it was literally the first time I mixed it in with my base formula, it was just like, yes,
that's it.
This tastes awesome. This is like objectively better than at least half the stuff out there on the market. And it was like my very first attempt. So I was like, yes, I've got something here.
And then what, so this all just on your own, for instance, those flavoring ingredients, that's interesting. I've got the whole rack of like goos out here, and it's pretty incredible how close their flavors taste to whatever the names are. Like whether it be like the birthday cake, like, I don't know, flavor of like gel, like as a company, like how do you get that in whatever flavoring to taste like birthday cake? And it does. So yours, run down flavors. What are the flavors of long haul that are in your lineup right now?
Yeah, the flavors we offer, there's 5: blood orange, cran raz, ginger peach tea, passion fruit orange guava, POG, and then an unflavored.
And was there one that you tried that you really wanted, but like people tried it and they're like, dude, this doesn't work?
I mean, everybody has their own favorites or not favorites, but there's a couple that I tried that I just couldn't get to work out. Something I had trying something with pineapple, and that wasn't. I just couldn't get that to work. I think I tried a strawberry kiwi at one point, and I just couldn't get it sorted out. It's odd because it's a fairly new product, so like we've only been offering it it's been less than 2 months now that's been available. But there's some people that can very clearly tell it's like they really like the blood orange, but they don't like the ginger peach tea. And there's other people that are like, oh man, ginger peach tea is like, that sold me on it. That's better than anything else I've tried out there. It's so unique, but they don't like cran raz, which is fairly inoffensive. And I don't know. So
yeah. So some of these flavors then, I mean, are you where you're getting them? It is actually something related, like in the ginger peach tea, is there actually like ginger in there or like peach in there? Or is it just you're getting these flavorings, but it doesn't actually have that? What's behind the curtain there?
Yeah, so there's a company that provides the actual flavoring component that I then mix in at a particular quantity for each of the different flavors. And so it's like a natural flavoring, but it's more like, if it was blood orange, they take, I'm like you have like your blood oranges or whatever, and you kind of take the juice and resin or whatever out of that, and they find a way to bind it to, like a powder, like a dextrose or something like that, so it can carry the flavor. And then I take that dry component and mix it in with the rest of my main ingredients to get the flavoring. So it's just a matter of kind of tweaking it, getting the right concentration, and then mixing. I also change up for each of the 5 flavors. Not only do I have like the different flavoring ingredient, but I also tweak like the citric acid levels, and there's a tiny amount of a sweetening agent in there called monk fruit. And so I change those levels up as well for the different flavors to make sure that they kind of hit the right mark. Like you want cran raz to be a little more tart than something like unflavored. You don't want it to have too much flavoring in there. So
and then otherwise, from people are getting your different flavors, is it pretty much the same nutritional makeup in each? It's just the flavors are different. Yeah.
Yes. So every product, each of the 5 flavors is designed to have the exact same amount of calories and all the nutritional information on there. It's all the exact same. All the math works out. The only thing that's changing up is just the flavoring components. Yeah.
And then how to go with just deciding how much of each of those, like the so and if some of this is like insider and you're like, I don't know, dude, this is my secret, otherwise somebody else is just going to copy it. That's right, we can avoid that. But in terms of coming up with like why 100 calories, why a certain amount of sodium, or like what's the reasoning there? Or did you find studies that said this is really what people can process, this is how much you're going to use in an average hour, this is what helps an absorption? Like if you run through some of those ingredients, why'd you choose what you did?
Yeah, so like for calories, 100 like however many calories you have in your serving is somewhat arbitrary. So 100 is just a nice round number to keep track of. One serving.
I would have preferred 98 myself. I probably would have had 98 in there if I was thinking of light, but that's fine. Go 100. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
So that makes it easier, and then everything else kind of follows through with that. Everything's proportional, built upon that. When it comes to the electrolytes, there's a couple studies out there that I kind of built off of that looked at the sweat rates of endurance athletes, and they did kind of a decomposition of their sweat over whether it's running a marathon or whatever, to figure out what is the concentration of sodium or calcium or magnesium and potassium in what they're sweating out. So basically, like, what is your body using during that exercise period? How much sweats, and then how much, of all these electrolytes, and using that as a way to figure out what needs to go into long haul, so that you're putting it back into your body, and doing it in such a way that is kind of in line with typical consumption rates. You don't want to have a product where it's like you've got to be drinking. It's got to be concentrated at something where somebody needs to drink in like 40 ounces of liquid every hour, because that's hardly anybody can do that. But yeah, making it to where I figured it's like 16 to 20 ounces of water is typically a tolerable amount that people drink in. And also if you're looking at marathon runners, ultra runners, they tend to top out at around, like 20, 24, 30 ounces of sweat an hour. We don't work quite as hard as, a hardcore road marathoner who's going out there full tilt for 2.5 hours or whatever. So it kind of lines up, like people, there's always in ultra running, it's like, drink a bottle of water and 200 to 300 calories. It kind of like works together. So trying to get all the proportions of that stuff to work with the typical use rates seen in ultra running and road running and marathoning and stuff like that, and cycling.
Yeah. So with people taking in your product and based on those sweat rates, is there, I guess it depends on the individual and the environmental conditions and probably any number of other factors in there. But is this on the assumption that this could just be a standalone product, or this is assuming if somebody's out for long ultra that they're also getting a certain amount of then calories from like aid station foods or recommended things that you think kind of pair well that would be filling a certain nutritional gap?
Yeah, so it can be used as a standalone product. If you're using it at about, again, there's individual variation, but the average sweat rate, if we're talking about electrolytes, the average sweat rate from most studies was what was used. And in long haul, if you use about 2 servings, so 200 calories worth per hour, that should get you, if you're doing also 16 to 24 ounces of liquid, you're hitting your sweat rate, the amount of liquid you need to be putting back in your body. You're hitting kind of a minimum level of calories that you need at 200. And then you're also nailing the average electrolyte profile for a typical person. And so like if you're a little lighter on electrolyte rates, then you might want to go down a little bit lower, but it's right in line with the average person. So it can be used on its own. It's also, because it has less fructose in it, it makes it a little easier for someone to say supplement by, if you go into an aid station, you pick up a handful of fruit, or you're down in some ginger ale or something like that. That extra amount of fructose is not going to blow everything out of the water. You can still get supplemental calories up to 300 or so without really having any problems on your stomach. So it can be supplemented with other things. It's kind of designed to be used on its own or with something else and not really causing problems. And for most cases, 300 calories, if we're talking about 200 calories of long haul per hour plus 100 calories of something else, even if it's like ginger ale, it's high fructose corn syrup, right there, you're at 300 calories an hour. And hardly anybody really goes beyond that amount. So you're pretty good there.
Yeah. And then, so for yours, if they're going to, so you recommend putting it in like 1 16 or 18 ounce bottle per serving, and what's your desired concentration?
So it depends. I think it was designed for 2 servings per about 20 ounces. So, or 16 to 24 ounces. It depends on your, how much you need to take in, but 16 to 24 ounces is typical ingestion of liquids. So 2 servings is a good concentration there. Part of what I had brought up at the beginning, about the sweetness factor being a problem with some other products was that, like I run Hellgate every year, and it gets cold, and when it's cold in December when you're running, I don't drink hardly anything. Like we're talking about 16 to 20 ounces of liquid an hour for typical running for me at least, but at Hellgate it's maybe 10.
Yep.
So if you're trying to use, like, it's just easy to drink. You're not drinking a lot at Hellgate because it's so cold, but it's always easy for me to just take in calories through liquid. And though to do that at a race like Hellgate, where you're only drinking 10 ounces an hour, you had to throw in, like 3 or 4 servings worth of these products into a single bottle, like 400 calories worth in a bottle. And it was just so sweet, just painfully, disgustingly sweet. And so with long haul, it's because of the construction of it being less sweet, having less fructose, having the complex carbohydrates, you avoid that problem. I mean, obviously, if you put in like 4 or 5 servings in a single 20-ounce bottle, it's going to get sweet. But it's not. It's designed to basically be about, 30 to 40% less sweet than most other products out there on the market.
So for you, if you're consuming 10 ounces roughly an hour, if you've got a 20-ounce bottle, are you putting with Hellgate an example or something where that's the expectation? And I was probably around there as well. And even though I was burning probably less hot than you and just moving slower out there than you were, but were you dumping 4 servings or 4 scoops or whatever's worth into your 20-ounce bottle or the equivalent?
Yeah. So in a colder race, I'll tend to do 3 servings. So 300 per 20-ounce bottle.
Yep.
And then just with that expectation that I'm going to be a little lighter on the amount of liquid calories I'm taking in, and just trying to be a little bit more mindful of, maybe I'm downing a gel every 50 minutes instead of every 60, or I grab that extra handful of cookies or potatoes at an aid station just to make sure I'm topped off. But yeah, it's definitely the 3 servings, 300 calories per 20-ounce bottle. I don't have any problems with that with long haul. With other products out there, it was a struggle to get that in at that concentration in the past.
Do you think that it's possible that if this year at Hellgate that you would have beaten John Anderson if he wasn't using long haul?
Was that the problem? Was that I let him use the product? And
it's possible, right? I mean, it's for sure possible. And you very easily probably could have given him a bag that was just like kind of like a placebo bag of maltodextrin and added some orange flavoring to it and be like, here's your bag.
I joked around with him a little bit when he was beta testing with me last year, and I sent him some product, just sending some random white powder in the mail to a buddy. But he honestly had no idea what was in it. I could have been putting in like, laxatives in there just for the next race, just to make sure I won. But yeah,
you should probably consider that. That might be good adventure. All right. And then and how about just as you're going through this, so the family supportive, your family like, dude, what are you doing? And why do you have a pallet full of maltodextrin in the garage and you're filling my cabinet with all this stuff? What's going on?
I mean, at the beginning, I have my own home office. I work from home. That was part of the agreement of moving from the East Coast. Used to live in DC, moved out to Missouri to be closer to family. I kept my job, telework, so I have my own dedicated space. And it just started getting overrun with just dozens of bags of powder and just powder all over the ground, and there's all these little measuring scoops. It looked like a little drug lab. And I think my wife was just like, yeah, he's playing around. It's a little hobby. It's running. Runners are weird. And then I filed for a business license and started really thinking about things, and never really had that conversation with my wife about where I was planning on going with this. So at some point I had to sit her down. I had to take her out to dinner and be like, all right, I have a plan. There's something here. I think this makes sense. Please be on board. But,
and I haven't told you, but here's the paperwork. I just need you to sign this. This is actually remortgaging our house in order to to afford the things that's actually already in the garage. And the bill's here. I just need you to sign on this.
Oh my gosh. So that's another part of it is like, there's a number of companies out there that they don't actually manufacture their products. They might design them. They work with somebody else to have them designed, and they're just, somebody else manufactures it. They package it and everything, and they ship it off. Like they may never actually even see the product. Like it's shipped off to a drop shipper, like an Amazon, and like they don't touch it or anything. One, I couldn't afford that. Like just the upfront cost to hit like order minimums for that would be crazy. But two, I would also lose control of the design and the process. So like I was dead set on, I'm going to manufacture this myself, which means I have to rent out a facility, that is FDA compliant. And like, I have to have, basically I'm renting another house. So, and it's a little different than residential renting. Like I had to do like a 3-year lease, and like, you're basically signing away, like, because I didn't have, a business background, like I had to sign away that my wife and I are personally liable for this whole 3-year lease, like all the money that goes into it. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, big buy-in, right? And for you, did you have to get the kind of food grade certifications as well, in addition to the facility, and go through those hoops, or?
So yeah, there's some hoops that we've gone through with like the FDA and all that, but honestly, it hasn't been too bad. It's not as rigorous or stringent as I would have initially expected. But yeah, we make sure that all of our, like on my end of things, sourcing all the ingredients and stuff, and make sure that they're all, they comply with my objectives of, natural ingredients and vegan, soy, dairy free, and all gluten free and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I guess that was something. And Kwana, I was going to drop it in here later in a bit, but that was one of her earlier questions. Will there be any nutritional certifications on long haul sports nutrition products? And then in parentheses, thinking gluten free in particular on that.
So all the ingredients are gluten free. It has not been certified as such, and there's certain ingredients that, like, to be able to have to source a product that is certified as gluten free can get a little bit tricky, because like main manufacturers, like primary manufacturers of things like maltodextrin, don't always do that. So then you're kind of left in a position where you can't certify your product as that. But I mean, they've all been approved as gluten free, and then all the other things that soy and dairy free and all that stuff, that there's paperwork behind it for everything we buy. There are some certification agencies out there for sports drinks or the nutritional products related to sports and performance in general, that we'll be seeking certification on. And those are the things that kind of run through just to make sure there's no like illicit substances, like there's no illegal, I guess, drugs in there that are performance enhancing and stuff like that. So we'll go through that process eventually. But yeah, like I said, we've just been up and running for 2 months, so that hasn't come down the pipeline yet.
Do you think it's possible for that separate unmarked silver bag to be your, that little secret recipe that, maybe for those of us who are into the know, like I don't really want to know what's in it, but you just send me that silver bag, and that tends to work well.
Yeah, it's the good stuff. Unregistered. Yeah, I don't know what is the I'm blanking on what that product was that one Olympic runner had. There's the burrito.
Yeah, right. Yes, that's unfortunate, right? Because who really knows, but right, it was actually right the burrito she had in the restaurant. Whatever. All right. Well, yeah, that's fine. I'll talk to you on the side about that separate silver bag that you've tested with the Oregon Elite project first. And that would be all right. So you're a couple years kind of into the process now. You are now into your new facility. It is a 3-year commitment. You still have a secure full-time job helping out the FAA. And I would imagine at this point, you're like, that's a tightrope in terms of how to kids, wife, 2 businesses, still doing a bit of your running. 3-year lease, honey, where are we going with this?
Yeah, that's what my wife keeps saying. When I sleep into like 7 a.m., she's like, I thought you said you were gonna get up at 5 every day and get everything in. But no, it's a lot to juggle. I mean, for most of us, just I mean, you're running a store, you've got the races, you've got family, and then you got to try and train on top of that, and that's a lot. And then so I had a full-time job and family and decent training. I'm not like a stellar elite athlete or anything, but I put in decent quality work, and then throwing this on top of it, it's been hard.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's, I would imagine, only going to get harder until there's some sort of point at whether either you're able to step back and hire people and just kind of oversee the show, or this is where I'm going, and kind of, right. I imagine at some point there'll be that decision to be made, and maybe it's not now, but then in terms of just as an athlete yourself, like now you're also the number one ambassador for your company. So it's like, you kind of need to be out there too and using the product. You need to be that first loser, the last person standing, sporting the long haul on the shirt, and be like, I
should have finished Barkley. The weight on my shoulders of being the next finisher of Barkley just for long haul.
Totally. Like that's out there, right? I mean, that's of course, we can joke about it, but the reality is now you're number one ambassador for this new growing company, and like, who's behind it, and it's your endurance story, and it's where you came from, and it's I haven't looked at your About Us like on long haul, but you're kind of the face, and your experiences are now what speak to the product.
Yeah, I got to direct people away from my sarcastic blog with all my race reports.
yeah, maybe, right? I mean, I guess that becomes now it's gone from in your garage to this rental space to it's this kind of legit respected company that's out there, and how to still make sure that it reflects you and you enjoy it versus allowing it to become this kind of, professional. And I guess some of the newer companies are relatively newer in this past decade or so, the Tailwinds, the Scratches of the world. They kind of had this fun, young, hip vibe, still do to a certain extent, which you can bring to the table, but you're also creating this, professional company with this kind of serious side or whatever. And that's,
It's gonna be interesting walking that tightrope. And me, I was never a business-minded person. Like that's not. Mm-hmm. I went to school to study math and statistics so that I could, sit in an office by myself 99% of the time, staring at a computer screen. So it's gonna be different. I'm really excited though, just to have the opportunity to have this grow organically and start coordinating with smaller running stores, like regional, local running stores, working with race directors, like not necessarily the giant, big mainstream races, but, just anything from fat asses to just regional races, being able to provide some sort of support, and then have a product out there that, that athletes enjoy drinking and find success with. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect of the business, like being able to try and fulfill those objectives.
Mm-hmm. And out of the gates, in terms of also just making sure that you're a financially just viable company. I mean, you're direct to consumer, because you doing it on your own, I imagine, would have to be the way to go. And that was kind of your focus in the beginning, and serving some of those who were interested.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of getting it out there to start. You gotta start somewhere. So the best place was just to kind of set up a website to sell the product to begin with. But downstream, I would definitely want to be a product that is in stores, that that's in your local shop, that folks can come in and purchase and kind of be a part of that community spirit, as opposed to someone that's just logging online and buying something from Amazon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I had to start somewhere. So.
Yeah, and what Kwana just said, get a few ambassadors, question mark. So who do you, I mean, I know some have been helping you with some of the beta testing, and that it was out there, and you have any set official ambassadors there, or a program in that regard, or?
Not right now. We'll get around to it. There will be a team long haul down the road. I don't want it to be something where, you know, it's elite only. I don't want to be like tiered in any way like that. I want it to be more of a community cohesive environment where you've got inspirational athletes that are just doing amazing things or fun things, regional level athletes that are just out there, you know, at these races like Bull Run and stuff like that. And then, you know, maybe some of the higher tier elite athletes. But again, I want it to be people that are out there enjoying what they do. And at the end of the day, the time on course doesn't really matter as much to me. But yeah, we haven't set all that stuff up yet, but we're getting there.
And I was just going to, as you were talking too, I was about to go there with how it's been, because there's a lot of us event directors out there. We're used to using or partnering with certain products that have been out there, and we have our relationships and we're used to getting it. And I was about to say, has it been so far successful in finding some of our RDs to get it on course? But then as you were talking, I was thinking, man, but like, again, back to the discussion of you having a full-time job and a wife and kids and being a runner, like, is it pretty much just you at the helm so far? In which case, man, you're also producing, you're overseeing baggage, you're overseeing shipping. I mean, you're kind of all things, which is huge. Is it just you at the moment, or do you have other employees so far? I imagine not.
It's just me right now.
Yeah.
So like everything you buy, every bag is handcrafted by me. Yeah, there's literally one day before we went live with online ordering and all that stuff that I was like running into the warehouse at like 4 a.m. to avoid a snowstorm that was coming later on. I was like, I need to get in there before the road's ice over so I can get a few hours of production in. Yeah, so it's all me doing everything. And so yeah, the outreach with race directors in stores, it's like I said, organic growth, which means slower probably. You know, I don't have a big marketing budget and all these, you know, resources to rely upon. But yeah, there's definitely a number of races that we want to, you know, I want to be involved with basically anyone that puts on fun stuff and is passionate about the races that they're in charge of, and I want to help support that. And if it, you know, like some of these smaller races, some of the race directors are literally going out to a store and buying bags of product like at full price, or maybe they get to work, you know, they mark up, they get a little discount from a local store owner. It's like 10 or 20% or something. You know, just trying to imagine putting on a very small shoestring budget race without any kind of support. Man, that sucks. I want to be there. I mean, at the very least, like, here, have these bags of product that is, you know, super cheap for you guys to put out there on course and just be one less thing to worry about. So,
and you have seen the brands in the space also, at least in my experience, and those that I've partnered with some of my races, and some I've seen grow very quickly and very effectively, but they were also very, and I don't know what it looked like in terms of their opening funding and how much they were able to set aside for, to your point, having not necessarily a defined marketing budget or seed budget or whatever. Man, they were very quickly on courses all over. And then it just seemed like the brand kind of catapulted, but that's a tricky thing in the beginning, right? In terms of not starting with some large capitalization and having to grow organically like you are. I mean, that's huge. That's big.
Yeah, I mean, ideally it'd be great to be in at like 200 races right off the bat, and everyone's trying the product, and so there's thousands of people eventually coming in and into local stores or going onto our website and buying the product. But then there wouldn't be any money to actually make the product, because we would just run out of resources doing all that. So again, like, that's my number one thing, is just organic growth, just trying to thread that needle as best I can from a personal perspective, but also just making sure the business just doesn't explode too much. I don't want it to kind of turn into this corporate thing. So,
And do you have, what do you think of yourself as you think forward in your own personality? Do you think you'll be able to, in short order, feel like you can let go a bit and bring somebody on to do some of those things? Or do you think that you're somebody that really, I mean, one, either needs to have a hand in all of it just because that's who you are, or two, that you so far at least are loving having a hand in all of it and then figuring out what that looks like. I mean, and maybe that's needs to come with how the business scales, but I think that is part of scaling. So do you envision, I don't know, can you even envision that? Or you're like, dude, I don't know, let's see what happens next month and we'll address it then.
It's like, let me worry about next week right now. No, like longer term objectives, again, I don't know when those different levels of scaling are going to occur. I hope they do at some point. I'm all for someone else coming on board to help with growing the business when I can afford it. Just and doing some of that outreach that's trying to doing like the marketing stuff and all those things that, to be honest, that kind of aspect of business doesn't intrigue me too much.
Yep.
Like, I really like being in the warehouse and making the product. I loved designing it, spending all that time tweaking, going through hundreds of iterations and testing. And I think I'm really going to enjoy coordinating with race directors and athletes and being out there and kind of talking with the people who are using it and all that stuff. But yeah, like the financial bottom line marketing type stuff of no. If I could afford someone right now, like today, to take care of that for me, I would. So
if anybody's listening to this episode and that is your skill set and you just enjoy doing it and you want to help the larger running community, touch base with them. And so it's en route to Finger Lakes Running Company. And I saw it was in, and I knew the owner of the store, but what's the store? What was your first official store? It's one in West Virginia.
Yeah. Two Rivers Treads.
Yep. And that's, is that still kind of what's his name? Kind of the barefooty kind of minimal runner.
I cannot believe I'm blanking on his name.
That's okay. I'm putting you on the spot and you're in the moment. But all right, so you're at Two Rivers Treads, and then any other stores that the product is en route to?
No, not right now. I mean, I'll be reaching out, but again, it's mostly I think it's been 6 weeks or so from when we officially kind of went live. And so some of that has been just kind of staying on top of those orders that have been coming into our website, and then trying to coordinate with some race directors. We've got some races upcoming, and I was I don't know if it's just because I'm a runner that I wanted to prioritize those, but I like the idea of getting it out there in the community as quickly as possible. Even though it's not as good of a sound business decision as finding someone like a store to purchase my product.
I don't know, but you're also,
but
I don't know, in theory, hopefully and Dr. Cucuzella or Mark Cucuzella, and I've only chatted with him a couple times. Sorry, I just Googled it because I wasn't remembering either, and that was going to bug me. So yeah, I don't know. I can see that two different ways. Hopefully, so now that I'll have it at Red Newt Races, it'll be in all of my race emails that go out. So if I'm about to touch with our races, I don't know, whatever it is, 3,000 people over the next couple months. I mean, that's a pretty, at least we're able to do a good amount of that outreach or touch people for you. We'll have a direct link in there. So I think that I think that's a pretty sound marketing decision, even though it's front loading and kind of is what it is. But I think it's a good way to get the product out there.
Yeah. And as an athlete, like I'm just really excited for it to be on course for people to try it out, forcing them. They have no other choice. They're 20 miles in and they need something. This is what they're
and so outside of outside of the Red Newt Racing, off the top of your head that you'll be on course at coming up?
Yeah. So right now in St. Louis, we have a group, an ultra group called the Slugs, St. Louis Ultra Runners Group. And there is a 50K and 25K that's going on. I think it's next weekend. And then there's a 50 miler called, so that one it's called the Double Chub. And then there's a old school 50 miler called Berryman. It's been around for quite a while. That's in May. So we'll be there. And then Capital Backyard in May as well. Sarah Smith.
That'll get a little bit of attention for it.
Yeah, and then Alex Papadopoulos, you've had him on. You know, he does the athletic equation races. He's got that on course as well at his events. So he's got an upcoming 24-hour trail race, and then the OSS CIA 50-mile night race, which is anyone out there that wants a super just. It's not gnarly, but oh man, it's brutal. It's like June and it's always like 100% humidity and 90 degrees, even though it's nighttime. It's like running through a jungle. Oh, it's so slow, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah, check out that OSS CIA 50-miler.
Cool. So I don't know. I mean, that's a good amount. That's a good at least dozen events to start with. So hopefully that does create some manageable growth as you start to work some of these things out. And for people who want to just order it direct, it's just longhaulsports.com.
Yep.
And
longhaulsports.com.
Yeah. And anything else that would be fun to talk about that maybe we didn't touch on regarding the long haul path or your kind of experience along the way? Or
I mean, I will say I have never thrown up my product, so there you go.
A good. So that's the kind of company this is going to be. That's going to be the testament on the bag, and that's where the bar is set.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. There was one race that, again, not going to name the product, but it was a 100-miler, and I came into this aid station, and the drink they gave me, it was so salty that I literally gagged when I first. I was like, "What is this product?" And they told me. I was like, "I've never tried this before," and I drank it. The first gulp was just it came right back up. So that did not happen with my drink. So there you go.
That would be fun to do some sort of, I don't know, intentional or some sort of video promo. Like we just get a camera out and we'll do, I don't know, 5 different jugs of sport drinks at like aid stations. And I don't know, just do some sort of like blind taste test or study or whatever. I don't know. That might be kind of fun.
I'll see if John Anderson will do that for his Germans. For the gym.
That's thought there too. You could,
although for the gym, it'd be more on point for us to mix in some laxatives with one of the buckets and just not tell anybody.
Or you could tell them in advance, but you just won't tell them which jug it's in. Yes. But this is what they get on the court, and it's got it's a Jarman's roulette on that one at the aid stations. Yeah,
you got to make it harder every year. Just gotta up the ante. So.
It's good. Cool. Anything else you want to mention or plug?
I don't know.
It's good. It's fair.
I'm good.
All right. So thanks for taking up a chunk of your time. I'm excited. The product should be coming through the door, I think, any day here, and I'll be excited to get it out on course as well. So for all those who might be doing Red Nude events, that's what's coming at you this year. I'm excited to get it out there and see what you all think. And so check it out again, longhaulsports.com. And otherwise, even more than that, maybe go into your local run specialty store and ask them if they have it, and then ask if they don't, if they can carry it. Would be.
What, you haven't heard of this?
Yeah, yeah, you could just put them on their heels and what do you mean you don't have it, or whatever.
If you do that, I'll give you a special discount code. How about that?
That'd be fun. All these possibilities with you at the singular helm and growing it. So that would be good. So Chris, thanks for taking your time. I'm guessing I will have you on again here sometime soon. When's Capital Backyard?
You
said it's in May?
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
Are
you
not
participating?
Running it this year.
You're not running.
I might be there. I'm hoping to be there just to kind of laugh at the people who are running without sleep for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I hope the scaling goes well. I hope you continue to enjoy it. And I don't know, it's pretty exciting, but I know there's a lot on your plate already in the months and a couple years ahead. So nice work getting it out of the gate. And
appreciate it.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, man. All right. Talk to you later. All right. So thanks all who tuned into this next round of Trails Collective Live, for tuning it in, for sharing, for liking the stations. Thank you all of our Patreon supporters out there, helping us to make this possible, helping us to turn it around and support other athletes, particularly here in the Northeast and the Beast Coast. I am grateful for all of you. So next week, I am still waiting for a response on what next week's TC Live will be. But if it's what I hope it'll be, I'm pretty excited about it as well. So stay tuned for that. And until then, I will check you next week. So until then, see ya.